Dr. Ashton here, and we're still talking about Chapter 8, Attention and Awareness for our perception class. This is our second lecture talking about attention to location and features. So the first theory that really talked about how we attend to attention and features was the filter theory of attention, and this was by Broadbent, and he did this in 1959. And again, it was this first formal theory of attention, and that he said that physical features form the basis of selection of material for further processing, and that unselected information does seem to make it past the sensory storage stage. This is where we started out. Kind of where we are now is to attentional cueing. And this is more current research that indicates that it's easier to detect a stimulus when we're attending to that location. So if we're paying attention to where that stimulus is going to show up, it's easier than if we're paying attention to someplace else. So you have a launchpad exercise on this that's assigned. It is your class participation grade. So make sure you do this. It'll walk you through this, this idea of attentional cueing very, very nicely. We know that attention is actually changing the way the brain is activated. So what they did is they had a monkey that was set up, Moran and Des Moines, had a monkey that had a single neuron recording, and that neuron responded really, really well to the red vertical line, and it did not respond great to the blue horizontal line. And then the monkey was trained to pay attention to one stimulus or the other, okay? So the two stimuli, the effective stimuli was the red line, and the ineffective stimuli was the blue line. And they measured, again, the firing rate for this neuron's receptive field. And what they found is that the neuron's response, even though both times the red and the blue was there, was higher only if they were paying attention to the effective stimulus. So in this image, both the red line and the blue line are being presented, and they're both in this visual field. The red line is an effective stimuli for this neuron, and the blue line is not an effective stimuli for this neuron. And again, what they saw was when the monkey paid attention to the effective stimulus, we got that high firing rate. When the monkey paid attention to the ineffective stimulus, we lost that. So again, it really was this function of attention on that single neuron's firing rate. So again, this response was much stronger when the monkey attended to the effective stimulus when they attended to the ineffective stimulus. Again, this really indicates the role of attention and the role of awareness in our processing. So we talked about these kinds of stimuli earlier on, and we talked about object features in the brain and how we are able to detect those. Those neurons are being affected by our attention. So again, these higher order cognitive behaviors are really an influential and an integral part of our perception. Other studies that looked at this, Motter compared the response rate of a primate again in the V4 area under two conditions. Once when the neuron, when attention shifts from a location outside its receptive field to a location inside its receptive field, and another time when attention shifts from inside to outside. So we either went from, we had an attentional shift both ways, it was just which direction it was going. And what they found was that attention and the firing rates of neurons was responsive to their receptive field. Again, this is, they think, is happening probably from feedback higher in the brain. So when I had you read that chapter or that article about the prefrontal cortex's role in vision, that's what this is talking about. So again, this is an ongoing area of research. Again, this study here, Motter, was done in 1994, and the study I had you read, the synopsis of it was done this year in 2016. So again, you can see that these higher order brain processes are affecting the work that's happening in the area of V4. We found this in humans as well. We've talked a lot about these primate studies. Humans find it as well. They've conducted fMRI studies. And if you notice, this says Yantis. That's Yantis from your textbook. Conducted these fMRI studies to look at the differences in brain activity depending on their attention to different places. And what they found was that directing attention to one location without moving your eyes causes corresponding changes in brain activity. So if you keep your eyes still and you paying attention to something in your peripheral, there is going to be a difference in your brain activity, because even though you may be keeping your eyes straight looking at something, your attention has shifted, even though your vision hasn't. And so they say that this attention is selecting which of competing stimuli are going to be represented for further cognitive work in the brain. So again, this is that idea is that you can't take cognition and perception apart, that they really are working together, and that where our attention goes, so goes our brain activity for perception. One of the other ways we look at this is visual search studies, visual search research. So one of those is a feature search, and your book has a nice image of this. Feature search is when you're just looking for one thing that's different. So I'm looking for a horizontal line in a sea of vertical lines. And that's pretty easy to do because there's just one thing that's different. So that's really pretty rapid and pretty efficient. However, when you're doing a conjunction search, that's going to be more difficult. Again, both of these were integrating perception and attention. These studies are, again, really great evidence of how involved these two things are together. And a conjunction search is going to be harder because you're looking for something that's this and this. The example from your book is you're looking for a blue line that is also horizontal. So you're not only going to have to look for horizontal lines amongst other horizontal lines and blue lines amongst other blue lines, you're going to have to find the one that is both horizontal and blue. And that's a lot more difficult than just finding the one that's horizontal or just finding the one that's blue. So again, this conjunction search is going to be a lot more difficult, and we'll see that the response times for those will go up dramatically, especially as we increase the number of items for display. We're always slower at a conjunction search than a feature search, but we're going to be a lot faster when we've got small numbers of items. Once we really increase those number of items, and again, this is from figure 8.8 in your book, on page 268, we really see that those response times go up dramatically. Another thing we see is that, again, attention is playing a role in this visual processing. So we know that area MT is really, really important for motion. So they showed people this video, actually, on the left where it says visual stimuli. And what they had was the black dots were stationary. They didn't move. The white dots really didn't have arrows. The arrows indicate that they were moving, okay? And what they would do is every 20 seconds, they would say either to pay attention to the white dots or pay attention to the black dots, again, while fixating at the center. And what they saw was different responses in area MT. So when they were told to pay attention to the white dots, we got a bigger response. We got a higher percent in signal change when they were paying attention to those moving dots. And then when we tell them, no, pay attention to those stationary black dots, that response rate went down. And so you can see this in this graph here, the pink sections where they were told to look at the moving dots, you can see have a lot higher activity than the purple lines that again have a lot lower activity when they were attending to the stationary dots. In both of these, just like with the monkey, both times, both of the stimuli are still there. We have moving and stationary dots in this image at all times. So motion is still happening, but our attention is dictating what kind of activity we have in terms of perception. So again, this is how we look at features and locations and which brain areas are really involved in that, in the integration of sensation and attention. Thanks.